This podcast is brought to you by THOR Bullets. THOR Bullets are a premium full-bore muzzleloader bullet designed specifically for modern inline rifles. THOR Bullets do not require plastic sabots or belts to be fired, meaning less cleaning for you between shots. The patented copper base creates an airtight seal, giving you greater distance and accuracy. THOR's unique engineering allows the bullets to retain 95% of their weight upon impact, and the controlled expansion ensures large, easy-to-follow blood trails. THOR bullets are currently available in a 50 caliber version that is sized to your specific bore. THOR is also expanding into a new 45 caliber bullet designed for faster 1 in 24 and 1 in 22 twist inline rifles. For more information on these great bullets, visit www.thorbullets.com. We'd like to thank THOR Bullets for their sponsorship of this podcast. Welcome back to the Muzzle Blast Podcast, the official podcast of the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association. This week we're talking with Eddie Davenport. He's the editor of the North-South Skirmish Association's magazine, the Skirmish Line. Eddie, thank you so much for coming onto the show. We're excited to have you.
Hey, Ethan. Thanks for having me on.
So we wanted to have you on. You'd reached out with just an email kind of updating, the things that you had for our magazine and things we had for your magazine. And I kind of just slid in the podcast there. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I'm excited to talk with you today about the North-South Skirmish Association, black powder and muzzleloading in the NSSA, as well as the magazine you guys put out, history in the United States, and, some of your own personal work as a mental health worker and a therapist relating to shooting sports and firearms.
Yeah. So I'm brand new as the editor. I grew up in the organization. So I always like to joke with people that I went to my first skirmish. So in case anyone's not aware, we call our shooting events skirmishes.
Okay.
So I'm just going to be going with that as we're going with it. So, but I went to my first skirmish probably at about 3 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
I celebrated most of my birthdays at our nationals in the fall up there because I just happened to, my birthday lines up the middle of our fall nationals.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always a cool little thing as a kid to go, like to get out of school and go watch cannons being shot. So that was always a cool thing to do, where most of my friends were like, hey, let's have a pizza party. I'm like, I get to see a cannon go off.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this past year I took on the editor role for the magazine, and it's been interesting to try to work through all that, especially with the pandemic and everything going on. We haven't, like most things, we haven't had any shoots going on, minus some very small minor ones. So where normally our magazine touches on all the competition going on, for us it was like rehashing old articles and getting writers to submit stuff in. Yeah. I got to know some individuals in the organization a whole lot better by begging them to submit articles.
It was really troubling. I mean, I think a lot of printed publications, you run, a few months ahead, you kind of have some things in the pipeline, but when you have an entire year just totally dropped off, it really changes things. I mean, we were in the same position. The people that we have running and organizing the magazine, I mean, you start adding up the pages through a year that cover events that never happen, and that's a lot of things that you've got to pack content in for. Yeah,
when I was going through, like, looking at, like, so the issue I'm putting out right now is our spring issue, and normally this issue, the roundup is we're either preparing for the fall national, or we're preparing for our spring nationals, or depending on when it comes out, we just had the spring nationals. But generally, we're putting all the information out. They're like, all right, these are the scheduled events. These are all the forms you need, all the stuff going on. And there's nothing in that because we're not having a nationals, which this makes 3 that we've had to cancel.
Oh,
and
wow.
So we host 2 nationals a year. We host a fall and a spring. It just kind of makes it easy for the amount of people who need to come, because we have teams that basically, if there was ever a unit in the Civil War that got drafted, there's in the state, we have a team there. Okay. So basically the entirety of the northern states are the Union states, and the entirety of the southern states are the Confederate states. And of course, we have members that shoot from teams that aren't on those states. I mean, depending on, we have service members. I know we have a couple members that are stationed in Alaska and California, stuff like that are based in teams. So we don't have units based out of those teams because historically there was never a Civil War unit drafted out of those states because they weren't states.
Okay. So what was it like growing up? And we talked a little bit before the show about your own personal experience in the organization, and you did a lot of, Civil War and black powder competitions. Is that right?
Yeah. So the growing up, I was always around black powder shooting, and I grew up around firearms. My dad made sure that I knew the safety rules and aspects of firearm ownership and shooting, and so I grew up hunting with my dad, target shooting. But like black powder is a whole different beast. It's the listeners of the show realize, there's nothing like smelling black powder.
Yep.
And like our competition itself, I encourage anyone who doesn't actually know what we are, just pause the show right now. Hopefully you're not driving, but pause the show right now. Go on YouTube and just pull up the North-South Skirmish Association's video. If you search that up, we have a membership video that we brought a team of videographers in a couple years ago to film it, and it goes over everything of all the stuff we do, because we are probably the most unique black powder sport in the country, or excuse me, in the world. Like, while there are the frontiers walks and round ball and everything, those all and this course the stuff like that you guys do, they all encompass aspects of like black powder shooting, but we do everything the Civil War had. So that means cannons, mortars, muskets, which is the big one, carbines, repeaters, and pistols. And of course, we're adding more things. Now we have single shot competition from the single shots that during that era, and smoothbore.
Yeah.
And the smoothbore guys, they have guns that were like, most of their guns are original. So when you have guns from the late 1700s, early 1800s.
Wow. I think partially myself, to my own fault, when you think Civil War, you automatically go to, one of the movies talking about Gettysburg or one of the big battles. But you guys are really in depth on the arms of that era. Yeah,
it's a living history of it's a living history of the weapons and the different armaments of the era. And our sport is unique in the sense that we're not reenactors, but every team is based off of a historical unit that existed. Like, for example, I shoot with Company A, 3rd Virginia Dismal Swamp Rangers. So, and of course, our nickname is the Swamp Rats.
Yeah.
We were based out of Portsmouth, Virginia, and historically you can track what we did. But it's cool to think that, like, hey, so the unit I am existed in real life, and we wore the uniform based on that day. And as a side note, wearing wool in the middle of July is not fun.
Oh, yeah. It's the worst. It's the worst. I don't care if you're doing Rev War, Civil War, wearing the wool is just a killer.
Yeah, it is not fun, especially we have a uniform that we can wear that's not quite as historically accurate of and everything, but a lot of teams like to go full on as original as possible. So it's pretty cool in that aspect. But the part where I say we're the most unique is most shooting competitions out there today are individual.
Yes.
Even modern stuff like 3-gun, cowboy action, IDPA, stuff like that. It's all individual. It's you against the clock.
I never thought the NMLRA would be in the same line as these other modern competitions where it's an individual sport.
Yeah, but in a sense you are. It's you, it's one man, it's his rifle or woman. But it's one person, their rifle or whatever they're competing against a clock, shooting targets or paper targets and stuff. What we do is breakable targets, but it's team competition, and depending on the size, the big one that everyone shares is our musket competition. So that is 8 people per team shooting at 50 and 100 yards, and we're shooting against breakable targets against a clock. And you were talking about in the beginning, you've seen, you think the Gettysburg movies and Glory and stuff like that. A lot of the sound effects you hear from those movies were actually recorded at our event.
Oh, that's
because
incredible.
There's nowhere else in the world can you get original musket fire bullets going overhead with that many sustained bullets. You got to think, when the musket competitions first starts, the line goes off. There's probably 700-800 muskets going off at one time.
Yeah.
And they're real bullets going down range. So it's kind of a unique thing to see and watch.
Yeah. I've pulled up when you said to pause the show. I pulled up the video, and I've been kind of listening to you talk and narrating over the video in silent, and I totally get what you mean. I mean, you've got everybody on the line here, and there's just it's much like the firing line at the NMLRA headquarters when we host our national matches. I mean, there's just black powder smoke everywhere. The line is full of people, and it just looks like an incredible time.
I mean, yeah, it's like, and depending on which event it is, I mean, my personal favorite of all that is, well, I have a guilty pleasure and my personal favorite. My guilty pleasure is the repeater match. So we're using Henry's.
Ooh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
The first lever action rifle. And and it's all black powder. Mine is chambered in 4440. So it's one of the few guns that we shoot of that era that it's not of the gun is not of the original reproduction, because the original Henrys were not centerfire, and you would destroy anything you try to of value to try to put out there. And it's really not. It's not the safest in the world to shoot the sustained fire we do.
Right.
So we use modern reproductions of Henrys, but I've had my gun get so hot that in the middle of a match in the summertime, I've had to take a towel, dip it in a bucket of water, and then wrap it around the barrel just so that I can hold it.
Wow. So how many shots are you guys talking about in one of those matches then?
So if your team is good, you can probably get through So the best one I've ever did is we won a championship doing this one. Is each of us, each person was had to shoot 10 shots or 10 targets at 50 yards, and there was 4 of us. So you got to think you minimum 40 rounds going down range. And the event that we did the best one in was 10 clay pigeons at 50 yard on a cardboard backer. So, the same pigeons that you throw up in the air and you shoot shotgun at.
Yeah, yeah.
So 10 of those at 50 yards. And I believe we got it down in less than, I want to say 30 seconds.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
yeah,
really
and
neat.
There's guys that are out there that are a whole lot faster than that. I mean, this one was, we were a B team, meaning so you have the A teams, B teams, and C teams. So, the top shooters rise to the top, and the ones that didn't. I hadn't shot this gun in probably a year and a half, so I've lost my spot on the A team, and we did B team, and we just cleaned house.
Oh, that's fantastic. So where are these matches held? You talk about the spring and fall nationals. Are those in a hub, and then are there some other smaller matches and events throughout the year in other places?
Yeah, so the home national match is held at our national range, which is in it's called Fort Shenandoah, but it's in Winchester, Virginia.
Okay.
It's that is our home range. It's every team has their own personal camping spot that's already pre-designated out. It's permanent camping sites. We have a huge firing line. It's wrapped around the river. It's a really beautiful place. And then most teams, or I should say most regions, because we're broken down into different regions across the United States, have a regional range where they shoot out of.
Okay.
I only know of 2 I know of where 3 ranges are located, just because, the vastness of the United States, it's hard to go to all the different ranges.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, most teams have a range where they do different things. Like the range that I generally shoot at is it's in Southampton County in Virginia.
Okay.
So it's it's an old farm essentially that we put like dirt in and everything, so we have actual firing lines and backstops. I know some teams, they have agreements with national parks, and they're able to do stuff there, and the national parks actually use it as an attractant. So it's like, hey, come watch this cool event that's going to happen. People are going to shoot Civil War guns.
Yeah. It's a big draw, especially for a park facility like that. To see some real history out there happening. Yeah,
and the I know one of the biggest draws that some of the teams areas get is because they have the artillery matches. So because there's some guys out there that like, yeah, they enjoy shooting the rifles, but the cannons is where it's at for them. And when they host strict artillery matches, that's the big draw for a lot of people.
So what kind of cannons are they shooting there?
So I'm not vested on the
Oh, that's
the correct sizes and stuff, but I can try to do it justice.
Yeah.
So some guys actually do shoot original cannons, like they were issued in the Civil War, but a lot of the stuff they do is it's reproductions. We have some guys that make fantastic full size reproductions, but what they do is, so essentially how the event is that we shoot solid round balls, like there's no explosive balls or grape shot going down range, but they shoot at I believe it's 150 yards or 175 yards they shoot at. But they're shooting at like a gigantic 10 ring, like the standard 8, 9, 10, 7X thing, and they do what's also called a counter battery. So it's a picture of another cannon downrange, and the idea is that if you can hit it and incapacitate, take out the barrel or take out a wheel, each different section of the cannon opposing is worth more points.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's a couple years ago. Well, I say a couple. I mean, we all know how 90s was only 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was like 2011, maybe. Could have been possibly before then. But we did a nighttime cannon match, which was really cool. They had flares and stuff lining up downrange and candles on all the different backstops, and the artillery crews did all their firing and competing at night. So that was super cool to see because it's something you're not really ever going to see again.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so cool.
The other real cool match they do is the mortar matches. So, and for people who don't know, cannons are the ones that shoot straight. Mortars are the ones that shoot really high up in the air. So the idea is that they would shoot over like fortress walls and then come down on top.
Yeah.
So the mortar matches are really cool because how they do that, again, solid balls, and you're aiming at a stake down range, and that they're going to measure the different, like the distance from the stake, that they're going to make a cumulative thing for all the balls. But there are a lot of teams who actually do have original, their mortar does have original pieces, either it's the actual mortar itself or pieces of the mortar or saw service. There is one team that uses an actual original siege mortar that I believe actually helped start the Civil War.
Wow. That's fantastic. I mean, I'm like you. I grew up around firearms and guns and spent a lot of time with things. But to me, the history involved with black powder and muzzleloading makes it just so much cooler than just anything else. And I mean, there's hardly anything out there that you can say that, there's a team of people working with and using parts that were there, at these historic events.
Yeah. I mean, I took for granted, like, my favorite, what I personally hold the most like national championships in, and I'm probably the best shot in, is my carbine. I use a original Smith carbine, so it was it's a breech-loader, so it's one of the first. It was a rapid fire gun back in the day. I mean, a musket, I could probably, during my fastest times of ever shooting, I could probably get off maybe 4 shots in a minute with my musket, and that's blazing, I mean, if anyone does muzzleloading, you know how fast that is. But with my carbine, I mean, I have to be careful not to shoot through my 12 bullets I take up on the line for the competition if I'm not hitting.
Right, yeah.
But like that thing is probably my absolute coolest. But as a kid, I took for granted that, like, when someone said like, oh, they saw a muzzle, like, oh, that's so cool. Look at it. It's like, it's so old. I'm like, it's so old. I shot one of those yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, museum field trips and things are a little different when you've been handling that stuff forever.
Yeah. Or like, I remember as a kid one time, of course, everyone loves the smart aleck little kid, but I looked at something and I realized that it wasn't original and it was a repo, and I called them out on it, and they're like, yes, well, actually, that one is a repo. We have it out because the original's not here.
How old were you, do you figure?
7. So just on that age where I'm not going to get super in trouble, but I'm still annoying.
Yep. You're right on that line. So where you're talking about the, kind of the home base or the headquarters in Winchester, where are you, you don't have to go into specifics, but where are you located, as you're doing the magazine work?
So I'm currently located down in the deep south of North Carolina, just under Fort Bragg, close to South Carolina. But I actually, I'm getting ready to move with my wife to Western North Carolina. We purchased a home, so we'll be moving out there shortly.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
No, thank you.
That's got to be neat being in an active part of this work. You know, you're in a location and in an area where these things happened and that correlate to the association.
Yeah, it's super cool for that because a lot of battles and stuff happened close to where I'm at, and then where I grew up was in Therapeutic, North Carolina, and of course there wasn't so many battles that happened in this during that area, but there's a lot of occupation, so there's a lot of deep, rich history in that area.
That's fantastic. So talking about history here a little bit, we talked about this some before the show, and I just want to touch on it, you know, just so. I mean, when we're talking about the Civil War, you know, there's a lot of changing culture and a lot of, you know, ideas going on out there about history and things. And I was just curious about how the association handled kind of the changing perception of history and the Civil War, more, you know, focused in on the Civil War.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways of looking at this. The official answer that we as an organization give is that we are the living embodiment and living history of the Civil War, and we exist to honor the sacrifices of both Union and Southern of the men, and then we living history in their weapons and arms. And like I said, we try to keep history alive in that regard, and we try to teach that. And of course, we also use it for preservation of history. A lot of our units do a lot of historical work, you know, preserving graveyards of the soldiers. Because some people know this, some people don't. Every soldier who fought in the Civil War is considered an American veteran. So they're all in veteran cemeteries, and so a lot of them are unfortunately in disrepair. So a lot of units try to take it upon themselves to keep the cemeteries up.
Yeah, that's great.
But as far as like the big one, I know you're skirting on the issue, but I will touch it. Is like, you know, this past year, 2021, the Confederate monuments were a big thing.
Yeah,
and we as a organization don't actually have an official policy on that. That's not something, because the monuments aren't owned by us.
Right.
We have now, of course, if you're talking about the Civil War, there's the two flags. You know, there's the American flag and there's the Confederate flag. And of course, the Confederate flag comes with an all host of different issues that can come up with socially.
Yeah.
And officially, we do our best to, you know, try to stay on the historical lines of, hey, that we can argue all day long what the Civil War was about. Some people have their opinions, but the historical facts were it was the South had their rights. They wanted slavery. They wanted there was an agricultural base, and they felt like they were being invaded by a Northern army based on other things because caused by history. Yeah. We as an organization do not try to muddy the politics of any of that stuff. We stick to the fact that these arms the Civil War happened. People fought, but we have a bevy of historical arms that are really cool, and that's what we try to focus on.
And I think that's really important. I mean, I think for you and me, because it's part of our day-to-day life, the arms and the associated time and those periods, they're kind of, to us, they're really important. And then to other people, you know, I think in history class and things, you hear about the policy and the leaders and the back and forth, but there's a lot there that is preserved, I believe, mutually by both of our associations, that of just the normal day-to-day person that is important. It's important to remember how things were done, how people lived, how things were made, and to preserve that so that it's not lost. So we don't have a period of time that we look back on and there's nothing there. I've been watching a documentary on just the history of firearms in the United States. And it's a lot of things that I've already known, but it's just a neat refresher of how important that manufacturing base was to such a young country, and all of the things that have grown out of the manufacture of, you know, original flintlock muskets, you know, used in the Revolutionary War, and how that changed everything here. And I mean, that's, I've been kind of a traditional crafts reenactor my whole life, demonstrating traditional woodworking and all sorts of things. And so much of that's involved in all of this. It's not the flashy, large firing line, goofy clothes as the public would see it, but it's a lot of really important things. And the members, I love that you touched on that your members are out there trying to preserve this and preserve these cemeteries and other things there, so that other people down the road can learn from that. I think that's just fantastic.
So I want to be clear that what I'm about to say isn't, it's not a reflection of the organization. This isn't Eddie Davenport, NSSA editor. This is Eddie Davenport, the shooter, speaking. But a lot of our members, though, like we have a lot of members who served in armed forces, who are veterans, stuff like that. So like they're all aware, like either you like I said, it muddies the politics of the Civil War. Yeah. But the South did succeed. It was trying to form its own country. And so with that comes a whole host of ideas, like could they be traitors and stuff like that? And this isn't, but I wanted to be very clear. We have members who are armed forces, are very proud of America and very proud of like fighting for our country, who shoot on Southern teams. Yeah. I don't they in no mind think that they want to see the South succeed. They do it because, again, they enjoy the history of the Civil War. And like, if we really want to get down to it, a lot of the Civil War and everything, like while we glorify or vilify, depending on the side you're on, like the leaders of the Civil War, really what it was about was the poor guy on the front line that was just struggling to survive. That he saw that his town was getting invaded by an invading army, or everyone in his village or little area signed up to go fight, and it's like, hey, I'm going to go fight with my friends and my brothers because that's my family.
Right. I think that's something, just personally, my grandfather was super into the Civil War and everything involved with it. And again, you can listen to the top level politics of it, but when you start getting down into it, like you say, the man, in a small town or on a farm that got involved in it on either side, there's a lot of just wonderful stories and a lot of conflict there. I mean, I think the Civil War was, arguably one of the first really mechanized wars, not in comparison to now, but it was still where you were seeing tactics of the Rev War and the previous wars, where you just had these large armies just coming at each other, but you had the mechanization of actual arms, cannons and guns and things. And you look at the pictures, you have the documentation of the Civil War that I think makes it's horrible. I mean, the lives lost, are always, stink. But being able to have the photographs and the journals and the writing of those people is, I'm getting kind of goosebumps thinking about it, because it's just fantastic to be able to look back on that and see all of that.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, right now I work in mental health, and, but my background was actually fire EMS, and a lot of what we did in EMS got started in the Civil War. Like every war out there has always jump-started technology. And the Civil War was a jump-start for battlefield medicine. Yeah. Like a lot of learn how to triage and actually saving people and doing stuff. Now, granted, we look back on it and it's very antiquated, but that stuff didn't come from nowhere. It came from guys down in the trenches, literally trying to save someone's life.
Yeah. And that's important. That's the story of how we got here. And I mean, thank you for your services, as a first responder there. That's not an easy job.
Yeah. But I mean, it was always the thing that I always loved to focus on looking at that stuff was while it was cool for to see how the medicine evolved, also how the weapons evolved to try to counteract that medicine, like the triangular, the triangle blades and everything on the stuff like that. The amount of gruesome history that came out of stuff is just horrifying, but also fascinating at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't go back and undo it, so I think it's good to learn from it and, find those interesting parts to kind of digest it mentally, I suppose. Yeah.
It's just, for me, it was because I realized that for me, when we shoot on the lines, I would literally take my bayonet that I always carried and shove it down on the ground to hold my ramrod so I can shoot faster while I'm on the line street shooting. Yeah. And for me, it was always just a tool to hold the ramrod. For a lot of people, it was the last thing they saw.
Yeah. Or it was the thing that saved their life.
That's not something to laugh at, but yeah.
Yeah. I, I think, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in this show and then just out at even last year being so limited with events. And
Mhm.
it's neat to get out and talk with people passionate about history. And it really makes me optimistic for the future of all this.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, that kind of brings me into why I actually took the job with the NSSA. Our organization is getting older.
Yeah.
The core. I don't know what exactly the core age of the average age of our members, but it's got to be upwards in the 60s, unfortunately, because like I mean, we started in the 1955.
Yeah.
So like a lot of and we have a lot of guys who've been in the organization for 50 years. Now, I mean, I started in 2000. Well, I'll just give my age because I can't remember things, but I'm 33 and I started shooting when I was 15.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I mean, so I have oh my God, 18 years in now. Wow, sounds bad saying it now. But I mean, so like we have a lot of guys who have a lot more years than that in the organization than I have, and I wanted to see this organization continue. I mean, because we're really unique, and I want to be able to keep shooting those guns in competition when I'm 60.
Yeah.
So that was like, so the best way to do that was I saw a need that we needed to kind of modernize our magazine and get it so it's something that people wanted to read and help, like, in a sense, get beyond the bad press of the Civil War, because that was the thing when I took my interview, is like, we got to stick true to what we are. We are a historical preservation society for the Civil War arms. And if we can stay true to that mission, we'll continue to succeed because we are the coolest shooting organizations out there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really important. I think our listeners have probably heard me say dozens of times now that if we're not out here talking about what makes us great and how all this stuff works and why it needs to be preserved, then other people are going to find a million ways to shout us down and snuff us out.
Mm-hmm.
So as a young person, I say that, I guess, kind of jokingly, because I'm also a young person involved with with an aging, organization. But I love them. I love everybody I've met and talked to, and it's exciting to be around so many people that know so much. But what are you doing with the magazine and your involvement there to update things and to change how it's done?
So some like the first things is actually just trying to make it so that it's something that people want to read. And I say that our past editors did a really good job. I don't want to rag on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my job here, not my point here. But over time, our magazine has basically shrunk from a lot of good readable articles to a lot of just stats, like from shoots and stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where every time I got a magazine in, I would flip past like 20 pages of just scores to one article and then throw the magazine away. And I was like, that's not something that I want. I wouldn't look forward to seeing that, because I remember as a kid, I looked forward to getting the magazine in. It was kind of like when my favorite magazine as a kid was Fur Fishing Game. Like, yeah. I couldn't wait till that magazine came in, because I poured over every page. And then it was the Skirmish Line, because it had articles about guns and articles about, they had a history section. It was just a really cool thing to read. And so I kind of wanted to get it back to that feeling that, like, I wanted something to come in the mail that I could be excited to read again.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Everything changes, and it's not degrading of the past work, but people change, and it's always nice, I think, to have kind of a refresh and get out there and start doing more.
Yeah. The one of the biggest goals that I have is trying to, I'm working through the logistics right now, and I'm working through we have a lot of bylaws that are on the books that, we got to make sure everything stays within the realms of the organization, but trying to make it so that we're more almost a digital focused. Because I mean, I've been subscribed to your guys' magazine for a long time, just getting it in my email. Yeah. So like, that is really nice. And like, it saves it. If we're just talking logistically, it saves money. And we have a lot of members who have already said that, like, they would rather their magazine subscription just be a donation. And so every penny counts. So like, just using stuff like you guys as an example to digitize the magazine, as we're just working through the logistics right now of doing that. I will say that if anyone ever wants to read one of our issues, we do actually publish it currently online. You just have to go through a few hoops. you have to go through what's called our bulletin board. So if you search up N-SSA.org, it'll take you to our home bulletin board. It's just an old message board. We do have magazines posted there.
Okay, great. I'll include a link to that in the show notes. So anybody listening can click on that, and that'll direct you right to those issues. Another note on the digital magazine, something that makes it nice for you, just some more arrows for your quiver. Over, last Christmas, all of the shipping issues logistically with the Postal Service, which is how our magazine is distributed. We had magazines getting lost and destroyed left and right just because of all of the hubbub. But those of us with digital subscriptions were able to get everything right on time, and everything was fine. We didn't have to wait to read it. So that's something else to consider for you.
And I can read it from my phone while I'm hunting,
yes.
Which is what I did this morning while turkey hunting.
Oh, nice. Any luck out there?
No, they gobbled behind me and in front of me, and then I kind of gave up. I had to leave and go to work this morning.
I think the season opens up here in a few weeks, and there's a bunch of toms around me that I can hear gobbling sometimes in the morning and the evenings, and I'm no good at turkey hunting, but I just like seeing them out there.
I gotta ask, do you use a modern shotgun, or do you take a muzzleloader out there?
It's got to be a muzzleloader.
Okay. I had to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'd like to upgrade and either find, if I'm out and about enough this summer, or build from a kit of some kind, really just kind of a short stalking rifle, but maybe in a smooth bore for turkey season. Just that look. It's just, for me, I love the look of super long flintlocks or muzzleloaders and super short ones.
So I'm throwing this out there to all your listeners. The thing that I'm looking for is I'm looking for a flintlock shotgun for turkey season. Okay. So if anyone out there ever has one and you want to help a guy out,
well, we got to get you.
2021's been great for finding guns.
Yeah. Is that? I mean, it's not really on our topics that we have here, but is that a concern for you guys right now? Because we're seeing, and the people that we're talking to are seeing major powder shortages or powder delays. Things that we're hearing is deliveries kind of in mid-May. Where earlier in the year they were anticipated to be in early March. And then also primers and caps right now are kind of the big issue of things that I think the primer shortage in the centerfire and modern stuff finally hit. The manufacturing backlog finally hit percussion muzzleloaders. I mean, we're seeing number 11 caps are a huge issue, but there's still some number 10s out there. I'm just curious if you guys are seeing the same thing.
Yeah, so I guess this is one of the good things that we haven't really had big shoots and everything, because people haven't had to use their supply. Yeah. But generally, I'll give a shout out to this one of our ad people here, but they're Bat Creek Gun Shop. They do a fantastic job for us. But the biggest thing that helps us with them is that they are located actually at our home range. Oh, like wonderful. Their shop is right outside of our home range's exit. So a lot of people, when they're leaving nationals, they pull into them. They either, you go buy all the caps you need, buy all the powder you need, and then head on home to wherever home is. Right. And so a lot of people use the nationals to stock up. And I know right now they have supplies, but it's nowhere near what they used to have. Yeah. And what they do have, of course, the price is elevated, and it's no fault of their own. Everything's elevated. Yeah. I mean, I don't like paying any more, for anything, but right now we're in a real bind, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've hit the point where, Gun Broker, where you can find 1,000 primers for $300 if you absolutely have to get some tomorrow. We're not there yet with number 11 caps, but I mean, it's just the shortages are there. And I mean, it's for a host of reasons. And the good thing that is there is that number 11 caps aren't as popular as small pistol primers or small rifle primers, but they are still popular. Yeah. We saw a huge boom in muzzleloading in 2020. I mean, I've talked about it a little bit with some other people, but just we had several, a lot of what we deal with all muzzleloaders, but the kind of entry level for everybody is kind of the traditional late 1700s, early 1800s. And
kits for those muzzleloaders were just impossible to find pretty much from July to February, and they started to come in.
Yeah, I actually ran across that. I'm glad you talked about that because a good buddy of mine, he had a project. He wanted to build himself a plains rifle for going squirrel hunting, which, I mean, more power to you if you want to try to shoot a squirrel with a flintlock.
Eddie, you gotta try it. It is so satisfying.
It's definitely a bucket list, but I mean, I struggle shooting with 22 some days. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
I got those giant black squirrels that you shoot them with a 22 and they look at you like they want to kill you.
Oh man.
But like we were trying to like build him this kit and like we just couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
And so like with the project got almost put on indefinite hold, and it was just, I mean, we could find individual parts, but everything at one time was almost impossible to find. And I was like, man, I know other guns are sold out, but the fact that muzzleloaders are sold out is like, one, encouraging that muzzleloading is growing, but also scary.
Yeah. I mean, it was just so weird. I started to see on the message boards and things, a couple people asking questions, and then it was just a ton of people asking questions, and then boom, the supply was gone. I talked to one of our business members, Deer Creek Products. A couple weeks ago, I stopped into a shop on the way to our headquarters in Friendship, Indiana there, and he had finally gotten some Traditions kits in stock. He had about 40 or 50, but he said he had close to 500 still on back order that they were still waiting to get in from. I mean, and Traditions is one of the major manufacturers. And it was just crazy to think about those numbers. And while I was talking to him, he was getting phone calls. I mean, he had a dozen phone calls in 2 hours, which was just, talking to him, it's just a level of interest that he's not seen in a long time. So I think I said it there earlier, but it's a really exciting time, I think, for muzzleloading and history and NMLRA and NSSA.
What about the modern cheating ones? You know, the modern inlines.
The modern inlines, they're running into the same things. The main black powder substitute, or the most popular black powder substitute, Blackhorn 209, it was purchased by Hodgdon last year, and when they did that, the supply for the year had been bought. Well, everybody was stuck at home, and I think everybody wanted to go out hunting as much as they could, so a bunch of people got into the inline muzzleloaders looking to extend their season, and there's still no Blackhorn out there. And the same with the bullets, the conicals. If you're using, I mean, all the 209 primers, it's in the same position. I actually got with an NMLRA member a couple weeks ago who is a dealer, a firearms dealer, and he was able to send me some 209 primers for some videos and things. And it's so weird that, like, yeah, I see guys online talking about 9mm or 223, you know, are kind of the big ammo groups that people cannot find, but I'm sitting over here with worried about if I have enough 4F powder for my priming pan on my flintlock.
Yeah, that's cool to see. I mean, I worked part-time a couple years ago, right before the big bust at a gun shop. So I saw, like, I had a lot of people always ask me about muzzleloaders and stuff, and I did break down about a year and a half ago, and I bought, or I should say 2 years ago, and I bought an actual inline muzzleloader. And but it was funny, I didn't actually use it this year for muzzleloading. I just couldn't I couldn't do it. I had to take out
it's a change.
Out a different one. But well, I did it because I knew I was going to be eventually moving to Western North Carolina, and their muzzleloading season is longer. So I was like, all right, it's really wet out there. I'll take advantage of the fact that this is a gun that won't die on me if it gets wet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the seeing these new guns and everything, like everyone getting really popular with them, that's really cool and really like encouraging. Like, I mean, I joke, like, you know, it's like they're cheating guns, but I mean, if you enjoy shooting, shoot what you enjoy. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's like traditional black powder, if you only enjoy shooting a 22, or if you only enjoy shooting trap. If you enjoy shooting, go do it.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you touched on it, your climate being super wet. I was listening to the muzzleloaders.com podcast there, and they were talking about how hard it is to hunt with a flintlock in the Pacific Northwest. And that's something as an Indiana
Well,
native.
rainforest.
Yeah, it's a rainforest. And as an Indiana native, that thought never crossed my mind. I've grown up shooting underhammers, precision, kind of the race guns of muzzleloading, inlines and things, as well as the traditional stuff too. But trying to take an elk in the Pacific Northwest with a flintlock, I can imagine that can be kind of hairy. And so I appreciate you touching on that.
That would be cool. That'd be a bucket list item for sure. But
Definitely.
man, I don't think I could ever imagine trying to keep my pants dry when it's pouring down rain.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I know for a fact, dear God, someone's out there's going to yell at me for this, but I know for a fact I've broken every safety rule in the book when I've been on the line competing. It's pouring down rain, putting my head right over the muzzle, pouring loose powder into the thing. Like, oh God, please don't blow.
Yeah. So I've got two questions here. What muzzleloader do you hunt with? And then what inline did you pick up?
So the Inline, it was just a CVA kit, and it's actually a 45 caliber, not even a 50 cal.
Okay.
And it just happened to be the price is right. It's an old CVA. I can't even tell you the name of it. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
But it's a CVA but it's no, that's not CVA. I'm sorry. That's one that I picked up. I picked up a 50 caliber. That it's a Thompson Center because it's the one that breaks them down like it's a single shot shotgun.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so I picked up that just because I really enjoy the fact that everything is enclosed, and Western North Carolina has a lot of I don't know if you consider it a rainforest, but it rains enough to be one.
Yeah.
So that I picked it up for that. And with it being 45 caliber, it's slightly small, but I figured I'd only ever use it on deer anyway, so that'll be fine. But as far as what I actually hunt with, I hunt with an original Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
So from the 1850s.
That's awesome.
And unfortunately, this year I did not get anything in my home state of North Carolina. I had a dry year in North Carolina, but I have access to property. It's my family's cow farm up in New York.
Okay.
So we went up there, and I was able to get a couple deer up in New York this year.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. What about you? If you had to pick your favorite, your favorite gun to hunt with, what is yours? If we're asking questions, I always love hearing this.
Well, I guess maybe it's not fair because I haven't taken it out yet, but I just built a Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle. And so I have some property here and we have some deer. I really don't do a whole lot of hunting, but I do hunt squirrels almost all the time if I can. Anytime I can go hunt a squirrel, I want to. I mean, I use my air rifle a ton here on the farm, like you say, 22s and things, but I'm so excited to get that Kibler out. It's a 40 cal, so like anything for deer or anything, it's not really game for that. For me, it was more of a plinking build, and competition build. But I'm super excited that it's large for squirrels, but it's still small enough to count. So that's my go-to. I mean, my grandfather, it was always neat. He always hunted with an original Civil War musket. Now, I don't know which one it was. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But I'd really like to get out and take a nice buck with that someday, just kind of in memory of him.
Mm-hmm. No, I trust me, I understand. I have my granddad's old single shot shotgun that I told myself one day I'm just going to make, it's really old and it is fireable, but it's one of those guns that I choose not to fire.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm definitely going to make a single squirrel shot round with it and go hunt a squirrel or a dove or something with it. And then just put it back away and all right.
Yep. Just kind of remember that and hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
So getting away from all the fun stuff that we're talking about, but talking a little bit about what you do as a mental health professional. I mean, you mentioned that this is something you wanted to talk about. And when you mentioned it, it was something I wanted to talk about because I think it's a really important thing to go along with firearms in general. And you see a lot of the national, like the National Shooting Sports Foundation is really up, and the manufacturers are as well. There's not a whole lot of talk about it with muzzleloaders and kind of antique arms, but I'd love to hear you talk about that some more.
Yeah, so I am a month away from finishing up my licensure to be a licensed therapist in North Carolina, but my degrees are in social work, and like I said, but my background coming from like as a first responder, I saw a lot of trauma and a lot of a lot of my friends dealt with suicide, and of course PTSD. I've struggled with my own PTSD and various traumas and stuff going throughout my life, and it kind of helped push me to work with other individuals. So one of the organizations out there that I found that I've been volunteering with, and they're growing. They do a podcast every week as well. So feel free to check them out. But it's called Walk the Talk America. But their main core mission is the intersection of guns and mental health. And how they do that is they help do it. They try to bring awareness to suicide, and a lot of because a lot of people talk about, I know this is the dark topic of the show, so apologies, but while like guns are not the most popular choice for suicides, they are one of the most lethal. And while most people probably aren't using like a muzzleloader per se, it's worth talking about that. I would say that if you're into muzzleloading, you probably are into other forms of shooting as well. And regardless of that, like we all follow the same rules of safety and stuff like that. So this organization, what their mission is to try to, one, advocacy on behalf of like we stick true to what gun rights are, but we also are able to talk with other mental health professionals. They have partnerships with Mental Health America, which is one of the largest mental health organizations in America. They bring on various guests for their podcast. Last week they had or I believe it was, depending on when this episode comes out, it was last week for me, but one of their episodes, they brought in one of the chief officers for the veterans, for the VA, so the Veteran Association.
Wow.
And they're talking about him and his role and like for firearms to him, and how honestly firearms can be therapeutic for a lot of people that like went through things, and how like for first responders who are almost afraid to come forward with their issues, or gun owners in general, because of the misinformation that's out there that, hey, if I say that I have an issue going on, that I could lose my gun rights. And this organization tries to do their best. They're like, hey, no, it's okay to talk about mental health, because if we treat mental health just like every other illness that's out there, because it is truly just an illness, then we can overcome that illness. And if you can't overcome it for whatever reason, you can manage it and you can still have a healthy, normal, productive life.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think that's really encouraging to hear, and thank you for the volunteer work you've been doing with them. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just on the like the lower ends. The gentleman that started it is his name is Michael Sedini. He actually is the former CEO of Eagle Imports.
Oh wow!
So he's a gun guy himself. He does joke with him, says he's the most ungun gun guy, because he grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, yep.
But I mean, he's a fantastic individual. The man, his heart is passionate about this, and they do have their mental health professional that they have kind of on board with them. His name is Jake Wiskerson. He used to be the head of licensing, or sit on the licensing board for the state of Nevada. I hope I said that word. He always yells at me when I say that state wrong. But he's also he owns his own practice out there, and he's a marriage and family therapist. But their board of directors is full of tons of gun people. I mean, we have, it's like Rob Pincus is one of their there sits on their board, and he's really active in it. Collier Noir is on their board of directors. So, I mean, like really big guys in the gun community.
Yeah.
So it's an organization that's definitely growing, and it's receiving a lot of support from both sides, because they've brought in people from the left side of politics and the right side of politics. I mean, there's a gentleman, his name is Ed Garner. He is one of the founding members of the Liberal Gun Club, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's people who consider themselves liberals but are very pro 2A, and it's like they appreciate everything liberal, but they're staunch 2A supporters. And so they're able to reach across the aisle, depending on that political divide, and go right up and down and help try to get real change and real advocacy started.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, no matter where you sit on it, you can't argue with trying to help people that need help and want help.
Mm-hmm.
So where can people find out more about the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, go to walkthetalkamerica.org. And the coolest thing you can do on that website as well is that you can take a free and anonymous health screening. And I'll go into that for a second. You go to walkthetalkamerica.org/love. And what it is, it's a free and anonymous health screening. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You take it and you just answer truthfully, and it tells you what probably or most likely is going on. It's not a diagnosis. For like any diagnosis you think out there, like we'll just talk about the big ones that people know, like you usually talk about depression, anxiety. It can probably tell you that, hey, maybe you're experiencing anxiety, or hey, maybe you're feeling depressed. And then it can offer you resources. One of the resources they do is they do provide training to mental health professionals. This is the big mission, core mission of Walk the Talk America, is that a lot of us who grew up in firearms culture, whether it's muzzleloading, modern sporting rifles, or just any type of hunting, is that we understand gun talk in the sense that like when we talk about safety, we understand the fundamental rules of safety, and so but mental health professionals sometimes don't. I mean, I'm not unique because there are a lot of us out there. We're just not really as vocal. But I grew up in the gun culture and mental health side, so I can talk both sides. But some people don't understand how to talk gun in a sense.
Yeah.
So what they do is they offer competency classes. You literally, the individuals literally sign up and they learn about gun culture. They have Rob Pincus as a national trainer who said he comes in, he helps teach it with Mike and Jake, but he goes over all the various aspects of firearm culture, what it's about. And they talk about, what makes a gun. He talks about the differences between firearms, the difference between an AR-15, a rifle, a shotgun, a pistol. Unfortunately, they don't bring up muzzleloaders in that, but I mean, you got your space for time.
Yeah.
But while doing that, then they break out the next class where they learn more in depth. And unfortunately, during COVID, they couldn't finish this last part up, but it ultimately ends in the clinicians going actually to a firing range and getting to shoot a gun for the first time if they choose to. Okay. So they can understand what shooting a gun is like. And the idea is that when you take that anonymous screening, if you ask for more help, it'll take you to Mental Health America's website. And if you search for a provider in your state, it'll have a WTTA trained badge beside it. So hey, they at least know what guns there are, how to talk gun.
Yeah.
So that way you're not really, you shouldn't be afraid of talking about your issues if you have any, just because you own firearms or you're enjoying shooting, because this is the part where I open up to the world. Okay. If you don't mind.
Yeah. You're fine, man.
So I struggle with PTSD. If you don't know, it's called post-traumatic stress disorder. You hear a lot of it for soldiers. I have a lot of mine from working as a first responder. It comes with that comes the bevy of things. Some of it is different. I usually struggled with nightmares and flashbacks. And it's rough, it's hard, it's very scary. And going to seek help when I was a first responder was not a thing we did, because in my culture, we are the heroes and we are the people that we help other people, not the other way around. So it was hard to seek help. And seeking help was one of the hardest things I did. And it did truly help. But one of the things that I like to push out there is that what helped more than going to talk to a professional, and like I said, when doing this, I did it on top of going to see a professional, so they stacked.
Yeah.
But what helped was going back to shooting. I was working in an environment where I couldn't shoot anymore, because my weekends were always spent working, and I couldn't go back. I couldn't actually get to my shooting competitions.
Yeah.
So when people go through these trainings, they realize that, hey, it is very therapeutic for someone to go to the range and shoot. It's very therapeutic for someone to take his children shooting or her children shooting. Or if someone says, hey, I went to the range and I shot 500 rounds of ammo, if we're talking modern, or a house mortgage. But it's very therapeutic to go, hey, I enjoy shooting and there's nothing wrong with that. So I want you to realize there are people out there like us, and we're training more every day.
That's fantastic. I mean, I've always, I guess, kind of joked about that going out and, shooting my air rifle in the evening or going and shooting a woods walk with a group of friends was therapeutic. because I always felt better no matter what I was going through after I dinged a few silhouettes. It's just so satisfying. It just gets your mind off of everything. So it's fantastic to hear that really the thing that everybody loves when they're involved in shooting sports is being seen as healthy and contributes to being healthier.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking about like the aspects of like, the amount of discipline it takes to actually hit a target, like there's a lot of mental awareness going on, and a lot of what you teach someone how to be a good shot is the same things we teach you in therapy and stuff like that about mindfulness. It's the exact same things, just framed differently. Yeah. So think of it that way. Like you kind of already know and are going to be taught some of the stuff, but we're just going to frame it in a different way. Like for me, going shooting with my dad was some of the best memories of my life. I mean, the best memory I have of shooting NSSA was I won a Class A1 musket championship, which is the big musket championship, which, it's the main thing on Sunday. Mm-hmm. I won a championship with that sitting beside my dad. He was on the same team. That was the best memory I have, and I lost that ability to do that. So that's why going back to shooting meant so much to me.
That's awesome. That's just, I'm happy that you're back shooting. I'm happy that you're feeling better. And I'm happy to hear that these resources are out there for people.
Yeah, I mean, they're growing every day. There's definitely resources out there. I'll gladly give my email in this, and or at least a way to reach me, and so that people can, if you need to reach out, feel free. Yeah. And I can always put you in contact with people. And like I said, it doesn't matter where you fall on the political spectrum. This is all about just getting help. So this is, if you think something's going on, the main thing is to talk.
Yeah. Well, I'll get that from you, Eddie, after the show, or you can email it to me, and we'll make sure to include that in the show notes for people to check out, along with everything else.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about? I mean, I have stories for days I can go on for NSSA.
Well, how about if you have a good story? I think that'd be a good thing to kind of wrap up on.
Okay. I mean, I kind of shared the story of winning a championship with my dad. That is the best memory for real.
I mean, that's I too. While you're thinking, there's a junior senior match on the NMLRA pistol line, and my father and I have won that match. I think mostly because of him. I don't remember how old I was, but I still have that medal in my bedroom, and it's one of my most fond memories.
Oh, that is awesome. Okay. I have. So I have a memory, and it definitely involves. Okay, I'll just share. All right, so my favorite memory of the shooting, I mean, nothing tops winning the championship beside my dad. I mean, that's just my dad's going to listen to this. I know he is, and he already knows it, but my dad is an inspiration to me, and winning that medal beside him, I'm getting allergic to feelings right now. But winning that medal beside him meant so much to me because, I was the best and no one could take it away from me. Yeah. But my favorite memory was actually back when I was in high school. So my high school had a 22 shooting team, a rifle shooting team.
Oh, wow.
And, it was really cool. We did archery and everything as well, and shotgun. But I'm decent with archery. I mean, I'm decent enough that I can hunt deer with my bow. I cannot wing shoot to save my life. I mean, every dove season I go out with 2 boxes of shells and maybe 1 dove. Mm-hmm. So they have nothing to worry about for me. But rifle, depending on how much I practice, I'm fairly decent. The last time I say I checked. The reason I say I think is because some of my medals aren't official because of the way the rules and stuff state we have to have a certain number of people for your own team. But I have essentially 6 national titles to my name. Wow. But so my first national title I won when I was 15. And that same year I started shooting on the high school shooting team, and they were going to their state championship. And I was, every day in practice, I was out shooting their state champion, the guy who held the records and everything.
Oh, wow.
And so I just knew I was a golden lock to make the team. And the week before they leave, they announced teams, and I'm not on the team. And I was like, I came to him and I kind of talked. I'm like, hey, is there a reason I'm not on the team? Did I do something wrong? He's like, well, I just don't think you can take the pressure of people watching you while shooting. Mind you, I'm used to shooting the NSSA, and I'm used to shooting the nationals, where mean, you could have a couple hundred people watching you shoot at any given moment.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but whatever. And so I leave and go to the nationals literally that evening, because I think that was like a Thursday evening, and my mom and dad let me take off that Friday to go up and shoot. So it's kind of a cool thing to get away from school to go shooting.
Yeah.
So I leave, go up there, and I shoot my individual match, and I win a national title that year. I win the Young Skirmisher Award. So that was the top shooter in the nation under 18. So I win that award and go through everything. Then I think I believe I win a carbine championship that weekend as well, and like third or fourth on a team competition. I think third because I still have the medal, and I don't know if they gave fourth on the B teams at the time, because at the time I wasn't an A team shooter. I was a B team shooter. With that said, it's weird hearing someone say he wins national titles, he's not the top shot. Our team is fairly decent. My dad holds a national record that to this day has never been broken. It's been sitting for 20 years.
Nice.
So he's a really good shot. So, but this is the part of the story that I like, and it's part of like a vindictive part of like I told you so.
Yep.
I take these medals, I go back to the teacher, and I give him one last shot. I'm like, hey, so have you given any more thought of allowing me to shoot? I just came back from a national. I did okay. He goes, no, I still don't think you can take the pressure. I produced all the medals in front of him. I said, I had more people watching me here than you'll have at this championship. I quit the team. they go to the state championship and fall on their face.
Oh. Well, that's got to be satisfying for you.
It was. I mean, it wasn't a victory. I felt bad because I had a friend on the team, but I mean, it was like, I was 15. I was like, you made me mad.
Yeah, that's a classic 15.
But yeah,
awesome.
I mean, there's so many different stories. I mean, if anyone ever wants to go and visit one of the things, search online and you can find a regional shoot. If you're near Virginia, and like we advertise our shoots and everything, if you're near Winchester when we do one of our nationals, and if you want to come out there, get a hold of me and you can come out there as a guest of me on my name. I mean, I'll gladly let someone come out there that just wants to check out the skirmish. I mean, that's what we need. We need people to come out there and check it out.
Yeah. And what are the dates on that?
They change, but
that's fine.
Generally the fall one is around the first week around the first week of October.
Okay.
They just shift depending, and then the spring is in May.
Okay.
So, but we usually announce them a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So, but right now it's weird. I would give the dates of the spring, but I'm unsure if. As of right now, we're having, not the spring. As of right now, we're having a fall nationals coming up. So in October, we should have a shoot.
Fantastic.
Fingers crossed that, COVID numbers keep going down, that people keep getting their shots and everything, and we're allowed to have it.
Yeah.
Because I'm itching to go out there and see my family again and shoot.
Yeah. It's a real bummer not getting to go and do the big shoots. I'll tell you, it's a tough one. Well, I'd like to thank you, Eddie, for coming on the show. It was, like I said, it was a great time talking to you, and you did great. So we'll have links to everything that you've talked about in the show notes below. For people to check out, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and maybe someday here I can get out to the North-South Skirmish Association Nationals and see what you guys are all about. Okay, yeah, and like if you ever just, I'm open to ever like being like showing up on shows and having fun talking. I mean, this was fantastic. I've been on a few other podcasts, like I said, and I don't mind talking, and this was just a fun talk. So like if you ever just need you don't have a guest lined up, just call me, we can chat. Oh, I'd love that, man. That would be great. We'd like to thank Eddie again for coming onto the show. This was one of the most fun interviews I think we've done. Eddie and I really hit it off, being young people in muzzleloading and shooting sports here, so it was a lot of fun. Like I said, we'll have everything that Eddie was talking about in the links in the show notes down below, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. If you've enjoyed what we've talked about here today, you're going to love the NMLRA Spring National Shoot coming up in June. It's June 12th through 20th in Friendship, Indiana. It might be a long drive for many of you around the country, and I understand if after the last year it's not something that you can swing, but please consider adding it to your calendar or adding it to your bucket list as something to get out and come do. We have a 1/4 mile of covered firing line, multiple woods walks, a large primitive range. We have everything for black powder shooting and black powder competitions. Anything black powder you have, there is a match, a set of matches, and an entire culture developed around that particular niche of black powder competition. It's something you don't want to miss. Please check it out, nmlra.org. I'd like to thank everybody listening for listening. It's been a lot of fun doing the podcast with you, and getting this episode out was just so much fun. If you want to hear more, if this is your first time listening, visit nmlra.org/podcast to catch up on the backlog of, I believe, like 44 or 45 episodes now, all talking about everything black powder, muzzle loading, everything in between. You don't want to miss it. It's a lot of great episodes. If you want to support what we do here at the NMLRA, and along with that, the podcast, Muzzle Blast Magazine, everything you see online, as well as all of the other legacy programs that we offer between Charter Club's 1 of 1,000 program and all of the traditional craft and muzzleloading classes that we offer, you can join the NMLRA. It's as little as $3 a month, and that gets you started, gets you Muzzle Blast Magazine, gets you all the membership benefits out there, and it helps us continue what we're doing to preserve muzzleloading in American history around the country. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Give me one quick second. My dog pushed open my door and just jumped in my face. I'm gonna go make sure she can't get a hold of anything. I have chicken laid out for dinner. Make sure she can't get a hold of it. I'm gonna shut the door.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, that's put up. And all right, Lily, just be good. Mom will be home in like 10 minutes.